All right, reflection video number 2 for the second state, which was South Dakota and Wounded Knee in the Badlands. I know, kind of a depressing episode, kind of sad subject matter, but I think it was important to talk about and an important thing to think about in terms of U.S. history. I went to, like I said, I went to Wounded Knee, and I wanted to do a better job of talking about this. I didn't really mention it in the video, but Wounded Knee is sort of seen as, in some ways, the symbolic end of armed conflict between Native Americans and U.S. forces in the 19th century. Okay, and that, the last major armed conflict, some people take it one further and they say, well, that's sort of the end of the, to take it all the way, it sort of like becomes the capstone narrative, is what I would call it in the paper that I wrote my senior year. And they sort of say, well, the 1890 Wounded Knee, that's sort of the end of Native American relevancy in U.S. history. And that's a controversial thing to say, and that's what my paper focused on, was challenging that narrative, because I don't think that is particularly true. But all the same, Wounded Knee still sort of serves as a symbol of that, and I think that's why you see, individuals even today that are upset about Wounded Knee, or that's why you see graffiti on the monument or monuments surrounding the area. That's why when I talk to people and I want to interview them, they're sort of hesitant, or they tell me that they have strong opinions about the matter, because Wounded Knee has come to sort of represent the mistreatment of Native Americans in U.S. history. And when you take into, and this is what I talked about in the video a little bit, when you take into account the current status of the Pine Ridge Reservation and the social issues that they deal with, it's very hard to disconnect the historical legacy of treatment of Native Americans from their current lifestyle on particularly the Pine Ridge Reservation. And I think that's what makes it such a moving historical site. Okay, we did have a question in this round. It came from Julian C. And Julian C's question was, what was the biggest difference that I felt like, or what was the biggest difference, or what would be the biggest difference between life in Louisville, Nebraska, and life on the Pine Ridge Reservation? And again, I only spent about 3 hours there, Julian, so I don't want to make any broad conclusions about a place that I don't really know, truly. But I would say that it just seemed, in the 3 hours that I was there, I would say the Pine Ridge Reservation is a lot more secluded than Louisville. There was just a lot less activity, I would say, if that makes any sense. Louisville's sandwiched in between brilliant. Louisville's sandwiched in between Omaha and Lincoln. And, we've got the highway running through, we've got the state lakes, we've got a lot of businesses downtown. There is a lot of, and especially in the summertime, there's a lot going on in Louisville. I did not get the impression that there was a lot going on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Very secluded, not a lot of economic activity, it looked like. Granted, I didn't see, the Pine Ridge Reservation is quite large, and I only saw a small part of it. But there just didn't seem to be a whole lot going on. But again, I don't want to make broad judgments about a place that I only spent 3 hours in. So what I would recommend, Julian, if you really want to see the differences, because there are many, I think pretty fairly say that, go ahead and watch that TED Talk that I linked to at the end of the Pine Ridge video, because it is pretty powerful. It's given by a photographer who went into Pine Ridge and documented the lifestyle there, and documented the culture there. And he just shares that experience, and it is. I watched it. It's pretty powerful. So I think if you really want to get an idea of how different Pine Ridge is from Louisville, watching that is going to be a much better gauge of that than anything I could tell you after spending 3 hours there. But good question. Thank you for asking it. You get 4 points for it. All right, we do have some new leaders after the second state. Our top 5 right now, we've got basically, it's a top 3 considering your scores, but we've got 5 names here that are, many of which are tied. So in third place, I suppose, would be Frank, Mackenzie, and Cheyenne. You all have 3 points. Okay, I think all 3 of those individuals guessed the correct state that I would be in. Same thing with Maggie H, Mason, and Mason M, who are tied for third with Trevor R., who is a new addition to our contestants, who's a teacher, a math teacher out at Schuyler High School, I believe. Middle school? High school. They're all tied with 6 points. Trevor is up to 6 points very quickly because he answered the question correct, that the 7th Cavalry was involved with the Battle of Little Bighorn, or the Custer's Last Stand. And then a new leader out of nowhere, representing the middle school and soon to be high school, I suppose, is Julian C., who answered the question correct. Knew the 7th Cavalry was involved at the Battle of Little Bighorn. But also asked a question, okay, which I just responded to. So that's a total of, you got the question right, which is 6 points, and then you asked a question that was interesting enough to talk about. So that's worth 10 points. So now Julian C. is our new leader after South Dakota. Okay, so stay posted for the next preview video. I'll put it up shortly. Hope you enjoyed South Dakota, even though it's kind of a downer of an episode. See you shortly.